Hello everybody, this is Gunsage, and today I'm going to do something that I will surely regret. I've got a bag of Paqui, I think that's how you say it, or Paqui, haunted ghost pepper, real peppers, real heat. And as you can see here, we're bringing the heat, and it hurts so good. Do you dare? Freaking hot. Yeah, an insane amount of ghost pepper, even more ghost pepper, and the heat is real, and I can attest for that. I've only had 2 of these chips, and I was like, ha, ha, ho. So, we're going to do this today. You're going to watch me. Ooh, even the smell burns. So, today I'm going to tell you why it is absolute bullshit that Final Fantasy VIII people think that the reason Final Fantasy VII people that really like Final Fantasy VII, hated Final Fantasy VIII was because it wasn't Final Fantasy VII too. Here goes. Alright. So, fuck. First of all, if you play Final Fantasy as long as I have, oh my god. The original Final Fantasy was basically Dungeons & Dragons, but in video game format, and as a JRPG. Like one of the original JRPGs. Medieval, magic, the whole 9 yards, right? So much D&D, in fact, that they didn't even have like a magic pull like MP. No, you had MP technically, but it was per level, so you'd had levels of spells. So you really had to plan out how you wanted your characters to be in the whole 9 yards and everything. Anyway, point is, next one. Jesus. So, the point is, as the Final Fantasy VII, games went on, this is what it was. It was always medieval. You had your airships, you had your fighter class, your mage classes, stuff like that, right? That's just the way it was. That's what Final Fantasy VII was. In fact, it wasn't until Final Fantasy VI they started dabbling with other shit. Like, oh, magic's fading away, and we got steampunk now. We got these Magitech armors and all this shit, right? In fact, there's a lot of people that were actually like, they weren't really sure what to think about Final Fantasy VII because it's like, what the fuck is this? This is not Final Fantasy. I mean, it's awesome, but is it really Final Fantasy? Like, a lot of people really were not sure how to react to this. Oh my god, my tongue's on fire. Now, don't misunderstand. Final Fantasy VII did a lot for JRPGs in general. I very strongly believe if Final Fantasy VII did not come out when it did, then it wouldn't be until maybe even 10 years later that we would finally start seeing a lot of the really great JRPGs that we were missing in Japan. It took a while. This doesn't help, by the way. It's just fucking water. Oh my god. Point is, there were also a lot of people that jumped into the Final Fantasy VII craze that they had never played a Final Fantasy game in their lives. But they were like, oh my god, Sephiroth and, Midgar and all this shit. Oh, fuck. Fuck me. This is the worst. So, the point is that you're not entirely wrong in that, yeah, Final Fantasy VII was radically different from the rest of the series, and so was Final Fantasy VIII. But you are wrong in that the people that came up to Final Fantasy VII were already like, well, this is weird. It's nothing like Final Fantasy VI or V or anything. Oh, God. Both Final Fantasy VII and VIII were different from the rest of the series. the people that initially their jump-off point was Final Fantasy VII, I can understand you saying, well, it wasn't Final Fantasy VII 2, that's the reason you didn't like it. But those also weren't the tried and true, tested people. I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say at this point. Oh my god, I need more. Oh. Those were not the veterans of the series. Now, does that matter? It does to a degree. They were the ones, primarily, Squaresoft was trying to make games for. Right? People who had been with the series since the very fucking beginning. This wasn't like, you know, oh, Final Fantasy this, or Saga Frontier, or whatever. This was meant as a as a continuation as it gets, as far as the series goes. It was meant as the next big jump in Final Fantasy. So, again, I can understand you saying, well, you didn't like Final Fantasy VIII because it wasn't Final Fantasy VII 2. But that's not the case. That's not the reason why we fucking hated Final Fantasy VIII. Let me explain to you why we hated Final Fantasy VIII and these chips. Oh, God. Like immediate dust hitting the back of my throat. Fuck. God damn. Final Fantasy VIII was basically triple triad and nothing else. It was a terrible game. It was a terrible fucking game. First of all, the only way you get magic is by drawing. You can draw them from draw points, you can draw them from enemies. No one character was inherently better or worse with magic or types of magic or what have you, because everybody could equip magic, everybody could use magic. Oh, but they did that in Final Fantasy VI, they did that in Final Fantasy VII, but once again, each character was distinctly different in Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII. Not Final Fantasy VIII. Not by a long shot. All the characters were basically the same. God. Oh, fucking went up my nose. That's not good. All the characters were basically the same in Final Fantasy VIII. The only way that you actually got the next best piece of armor, best piece of equipment, the whole 9 yards, was through crafting, which was stupid. It meant that money meant less than ever. You were disincentivized from using spells because of the way the Guardian forces were used. And you had to keep on finding these stupid draw points, turning enemies into cards so you could have cards to play with for fucking triple triad, hoping that you stole from the right enemy so you could get the proper crafting equipment to upgrade your weapons rather than just fucking buying them like a normal damn person. Oh, God. It was a fucking mess. No, but it gets worse. The characters suck, too. The characters suck fucking out loud. You think Tidus is obnoxious? Fucking try Zell for a little while. Zell was the fucking worst. Squall was the worst, too. Like, okay, come on, guys. We can have fucking emo characters. You had Cloud, you had Vincent. I get it. Jesus fucking Christ. Squall was a thoroughly unlikable character. All the way through. He was not a fun character, he was not an interesting character. Every single character just reeked of mediocrity. The only one that was halfway decent and interesting was Irving, and even he really didn't get as much screen time as he could have. Oh no, I'm sorry. Also, Laguna and his buds. They were actually pretty interesting. Guess how much you got to play with them? About 10% of the game. The love story between Squall and Renault was completely forced, was full of fucking plot holes like, oh god, oh no, I killed these people on the fucking moon base, I better turn myself over. Square's like, yep, we better turn you over. And then literally 5 minutes later, why did I turn her over? I guess I'm in love with her. I better go rescue her. Guys, it's shitty storytelling at its finest. It was absolutely fucking horrendous. Fucking more of this. Just like these chips, they're horrendous too. Oh, God. The music was good. The visuals were good. The GFs were shit. They were shit. The way you went about casting them was shit. The way your limit breaks occurred was shit and random. The limit breaks were at least interesting, but there wasn't any one reason to use one person's limit break versus another. That was one of the other benefits of Final Fantasy VII. Furthermore, taking away the materia system, which was actually something pretty interesting from Final Fantasy VII, and just replacing it with the GS where it's like, yeah, just fucking assign whatever. Absolutely asinine. I mean, literally, there was one point at which I had full 9999 health. I had to use Ultima once to get through a boss fight because I was struggling. Yeah, so then my max health was now suddenly over 7,000. Are you fucking kidding me? Again, disincentivizing people from using magic in a Final Fantasy game. What the fuck are you doing? I was hoping that would be better because it was a small chip. I was wrong. Oh, God. Never mind that to get the most out of the game, you had to completely find all the card people in the game, collect and swap cards, and beat the shit out of people in Triple Triad, and just hope for the best in some cases, because there was a lot of randomness to it as well. If you really want to play Triple Triad, man, back in the 90s, they had a Triple Triad website you could play it on. And it was actually pretty fun. Pretty damn fun, actually. That's actually the only part of the game I still remember and really like. That and the FMVs. I can't shit on those. They're pretty great. Bigger chip this time. God damn. And you know what? The worst thing is the final fucking area. For anyone that hasn't beaten Final Fantasy VIII, you can tune off if you really need to. If you want to just remember it as it was your favorite game ever and that's it, but you never really beat it, that's fine. Tune off. If you don't care, continue. The final fucking tower. You can't access all of your fucking people for the final fight unless you fight every last one of these optional bosses. All of your abilities unless you fight all these optional bosses, which your party is randomly decided for the final fight to begin with. If you have a party member that's down for too long in that fight and they are going to get knocked down, then they are... I don't remember what the fuck it's even called. They basically disappear into the time stream. That's the other fucking problem. We have another fucking Final Fantasy trying to do the fucking time shit horribly, trying to explain why this all happened horribly through some crazy fucking time mage that you gotta fight at the fucking end of the game. Like that hasn't been done to death. The final FMV sucked. Didn't explain anything. Because how can you? It's a fucking time stream story. The game was horrendous. It was well received, it looked really good, it sounded really good. It just wasn't a good game. It was not a good entry in the Final Fantasy series, and furthermore, if you really want to accuse Final Fantasy VII goers of hating Final Fantasy VIII because it's not more of Final Fantasy VII, why the fuck is Final Fantasy IX so well received? Why the fuck is Final Fantasy VI so well received? I would argue, not everyone, but there's a lot of us that went back after playing Final Fantasy VII as our first Final Fantasy and played Final Fantasy VI and fucking loved it. Played Final Fantasy IX and fucking loved it. At the end of the fucking day, using the argument that Final Fantasy VIII just wasn't more of Final Fantasy VII and that's the reason Final Fantasy VII fanboys hated it, nah, man. Nah. Weird flex. But no. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying anymore. I think overall, if I had to rate it now, I'd probably give the game a 7 out of 10. Because even though there were a lot of aspects I didn't like about it, the overall audio and visual presentation of the game was very good. For the time that it was released, it was a very good game. But it has not aged well, just like Final Fantasy VII. Incidentally, Final Fantasy IX has aged well, Final Fantasy VI has aged well, and even Final Fantasy X has aged well, so figure that the fuck out. Anyway, I'm gonna get the fuck off of here. I'm probably gonna need to go shit some fire here in a second. I hope y'all enjoyed this! I did not!